It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. No, we are not wearing similar colored shirts. It just looks like that. Maybe by the camera angle a little bit. This is a mint green. Alan's wearing blue, so it's not even relatively close to the same. But originally when I joined, I was like, wait a sec. What do we got going on here? Alan, how we doing?
Doing good. Just updated
today?
The lunch choice today, cookout.
There we go.
If you're not familiar.
There we go. Yeah, I saw at least two people giving a shout out to the Whataburger. They said, welcome to the right side. So
Whataburger is awesome. Cookout's awesome. Fusakli's down here. We went there the first day. So good. The exotic fast foods, you got to get those when you're out of town.
What is the name of this isn't fast food. What is the name of the barbecue place that we went
Greenland.
to? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the spot right there.
That'll be on the dinner rotation here somewhere. Winslow's Oyster House went to dinner the other night. That's the kind of classic Mobile restaurant downtown. Probably get some barbecue here before we go. Sure.
Absolutely. Love to hear it. Okay. Obviously we got to, other than talking about food, go through some of what this week looked like. Nothing going on tomorrow as it pertains to on the field at the Senior Bowl and then the game being played on Saturday, but you'll be making your way to Orlando. So different conversation we're going to have next week, but as it pertains to this week, before we dive into Senior Bowl stuff, saw some good stuff in the YouTube comments that I wanted to get to as it pertains to the Pittsburgh Steelers and free agency before we even get to the draft. A couple of questions regarding, Justin Fields, even Russell Wilson is part of one of these. So I'd like to start there. Cliff the Dark Knight, who has DM me questions before. This time he's hitting us up on YouTube, so he knows if he doesn't get his question one way, he's going to get it in another way. But he said, if by some weird chance we were to lose out on Wilson and Fields, what is a realistic plan C? I'll be honest, I haven't given this much thought.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it. I'm unsure as to the circumstances that would have to happen for that to happen. Like the Steelers, I guess the Steelers could start to negotiate with Fields, tell Russ that's the way they're going to go. He could sign, but see, he can't sign somewhere else until after free agency starts. So, man, I don't know. I can't. It's a tough situation for sure. I guess maybe Russ could retire. I don't know. All right. So let's say it does happen. Mm-hmm. What are the plan C's? It's not pretty. I mean, there aren't a lot of options out there. I don't really expect Sam Darnold to be available to them. I would not trade for Kirk Cousins. I guess if he is cut, then he becomes a viable option. We talked about trying to trade for a guy like Geno Smith maybe. But there's not an obvious, just go grab this guy off the shelf kind of answer here. I think it makes Aaron Rodgers start to look like kind of a good plan. I don't know. There's not a lot of good directions to go at that point.
Yeah, I mean, when we got asked, somebody asked about Aaron Rodgers a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't see it, but at the same time, if you asked me to start naming the most likely outside guys, far beyond the probability of it being Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, out of guys that currently aren't on the team, it's the most likely. I felt like, at least at that time, and I don't know where I'm at now. Out of outside options that aren't currently on the roster, it's not gonna. I don't see them starting a rookie. Even if they were to draft one relatively early, I don't think that guy would be the starter. I think. Oh boy, I just thought about something. I think it was either this week or late last week. I brought up there was a report about the interest in Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Would that be to be a starter if for whatever reason they did not bring back one of those two?
I can't see that. I can't see that under any circumstances. I mean, there's been talk there's all these small percentage okay, if Derek Carr gets cut, sure. If let's say Kyler Murray gets on the trade block, yeah, okay, but these are all probably not going to happen. In terms of guys that are probably going to be available to the Steelers, man, it's bleak. It's bleak. That's why, like, I don't confuse me, like, fairly full-throated saying that the Steelers should have Justin Fields as their quarterback this year with me saying that's, like, going to be great. I just think it's the best of a series of pretty bad options here.
Yep. And I think that when you really sit down and think about it, like the conversation we're having right now, it really comes to the forefront just how bleak it is. Like the fact that
Maybe
we're throwing
Matt
out the names.
Stafford becomes available. Again, like, these are all, like, these all feel like very
Les Snead, the Rams GM, when asked about it, I was kind of waiting for his answer to kind of shoot down the idea of trading Matthew Stafford, but all he did was like go back in time and talk about the timeline from when they traded for him from Detroit to set up, like, if they were to trade him, this is when it would look like, this is when it would take place. I was like, well, that was kind of weird. That's not what I was expecting him to say.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that is possible. And is that Geno Smith?
Yeah, I think he's definitely possible. How about Daniel Jones? I feel like that's one where, like, I don't think it's going to work, but at least there's a chance it could work. And he will be available. Like that. Like there are very few of those where it's like, I think there is some chance of this working, and I'm also fairly certain he'll be available. Like it's really hard to come up with one of those.
You got to really commit to a lot more QB runs and taking advantage of his athleticism then, and not, that's what I'm saying, and and not throwing the ball a lot. So, we've already talked about how there's not that many quarterbacks in this league that you want throwing 30 plus times. I think no matter who's playing quarterback for the Steelers next year, they're going to be within that bucket. But certainly if it's Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think the Steelers, like people should get ready for the idea that this offense is going to be very conservative again next year, just because they are not going to have the talented quarterback, and Mike Tomlin is going to be very intentional about the risks they take. There's going to be a whole lot of trying to win 14-13. Like, that's sort of already preordained.
What there was another question that kind of goes along with this from Moon Puddles by Robert R. Gamble. Are the Steelers in danger of losing Justin Fields to another team because they take too long to make Justin an offer? So I guess we should kind of lay out what the timeline should or could look like as it pertains to, current players on the Steelers that are set to be unrestricted free agents.
Yeah. So no, the short answer to that question is no. The long answer is the Steelers are the only team that can make an offer to Justin Fields between now and March 10th. So they got a long way to go. I don't know that the Steelers have offered Justin Fields a contract, but it wouldn't surprise me if they've at least made some sort of overture. So I don't see any reason for them to be in a rush. Like they're the only team that can talk to Justin, and they're the only so like there's no hurry here at all. No, like the idea that now they do have to make an agreement, and it takes two to make an agreement. They can't just decide they want Justin Fields and then poof, he's here. Like they do have to agree to a contract with him, and sometimes that does take time. And Justin may not want to sign before getting to the contact period and seeing what's out there on the market. And if that's the case, the Steelers are going to have to make a decision if they want to take that risk or if they just want to sign Russell Wilson. And so I haven't heard anything from Justin's camp about what that process might look like. And so be pretty speculative at this point, but there's lots of ways this can play out, but none of them really involve the Steelers needing to hurry.
Do you think their process, or at least philosophy, whatever word you want to use there, how they typically approach their free agents, where it's like, hey, go see what you can do on the open market, come back to us, we'll see if we want to match that number. Do you think that that's going to be tweaked? Do you think they'll still handle it the same way as it pertains to this quarterback situation, or what do you think their approach will be with that?
No, they're going to do everything they can to get a quarterback under contract before the start of free agency. I would be really surprised if they go to what I say March 10th without a quarterback under contract. Maybe the players will want that, but the Steelers are going to try really hard to not let that happen.
Well, that's kind of what I'm. Yeah, I guess that was kind of what I was getting at, is because I don't see the Steelers wanting to go down that path with both, right? Like if Justin's their preference, they're going to want to do business with him well before that date. But at the same time, like you said, takes two to tango. Is he curious as to what's out there? If the Steelers offer is, maybe heavily incentivized where it could be a nice payday, but maybe there's not a second year on it. Maybe he wants, although I think the Steelers should want it to be a multi-year deal because it gives you insurance for 26.
Art said that when he talked this week that he'd prefer it to be a multi-year thing.
Yeah. So, I guess scratch that off from what I was about to say. But I think the Steelers should want to do business well before the free agency period. You're in agreement. Think that that's the way that it will work out. Okay, let's move along to, I think this is interesting from Devin the House. So we actually got a couple questions as pertains to this guy. I mentioned we had a couple stuff on Justin Fields, more on Emeka Egbuka. Why is everyone so high on Egbuka for the Steelers when he's a slot receiver, says Devin the House?
Because he's not a slot receiver. That's the best way to answer that question. He did play some slot at Ohio State, but I don't think he is being evaluated as a player that is limited to being in the slot in the NFL. He is certainly big enough that there are no physical reasons he can't be able to. He's going to have to learn how to deal with press coverage, and not everybody does. But he's 6'1", 205, man. That's not a slot body. He's not, and he doesn't necessarily have the world's quickest, I don't know. He just does. To me, he's a Z receiver. He's not a slot. I think he's more of that guy you can put in motion, but you can put him on the outside. And I don't think anybody is evaluating him as just a slot receiver. Also, in Arthur Smith's scheme, they're in so many tight formations anyway. They're playing George Pickens didn't play very much in the slot, meaning with a receiver outside of him, but he played a ton of condensed splits this year where he was 2 yards from the tight end or on that side of the field. So I don't think he is. And I think that's part of what makes him a really, really high-end wide receiver prospect.
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement. I think Ronell Brown had a question kind of regarding Egbuka, so I'll bring this in and then I'll expand more on my thoughts about Emeka Egbuka. But longtime listener, first time commenting, Egbuka has a high floor and most likely will be a safe plug-and-play receiver in the NFL. Doesn't appear to be a star. Matthew Golden will be a star. Pittsburgh's offense lacks star power, and this draft would be a great opportunity for them to potentially change that. If there's no quality franchise quarterback options, draft the most dynamic offensive player you can for the best value. If there's not a bona fide star signed in free agency, grab one in the draft. The potential, with a great deal of potential in the draft. Every team in the playoffs this year in recent years has had at least one star player on offense, if not more. There we go. What do you think?
I don't really think I agree that Egbuka can't be a star player. I mean, is he going to be Terrell Owens? No. But I don't think Matthew Golden is either. I don't think they're that different in terms of the player that they are, really. I mean, I think mostly Egbuka is safer because he's had a longer run of production. Golden, half of his receiving yards are in the last 5 weeks. And he had 2 years at Houston before that didn't do much. So I think Egbuka is safer, but that doesn't mean that he's not a really good player too. Safe doesn't equal bad always. You can have safe high-level players, and you can have safe, low-level players. I think he's a really good player. I would rather have Egbuka than Golden, period. I don't think that there's much of a choice there.
I think my take on it is why, this this label gets strapped to Egbuka is because he's always been the second guy at Ohio State, but there's so many guys that have it. And when you're playing across from Jeremiah Smith, that's going to be the case. We saw Chris Olave kind of fall into that same thing when he was playing next to Garrett Wilson. Jackson Smith and Jigba has been second or third option at times at Ohio State. Terry McLaurin wasn't really talked about that much in his tenure at Ohio State. That's obviously a wide receiver factory, and the names that they churn out of there, really good prospects might not always have that production. Certainly at times aren't going to be the best player on that wide receiver depth chart. So I think that's why Egbuka falls into that, is just because the guys that they've constantly had there, from going from Marvin Harrison to Jeremiah Smith, he's never been the guy in that room.
Yeah, it's the fit too, right? It's all that and the fit with the Steelers. Like, Luther Burden's a really good player, and I think he's probably going to go higher than Egbuka. But if the Steelers should want Egbuka more than Burden, he's a better fit for their offense. Like, I just think, there's nothing not to like there. It's probably among the best possible first round picks for the team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I told you, if we got 3 months basically until the draft, but if it were today, that's who I would want to land in the Pittsburgh Steelers laps.
We go to the Ohio State question right here, since we're talking about Egbuka.
Oh yeah. Oh crap. That was a little bit further down. I don't have that pulled up right now. Oh, somebody said, good thing I remember it. Do we think that how much do we think the Steelers value championship pedigree when it comes to the college team that they draft from winning a national championship? Obviously, they like the Georgia guys after they've had success at that level, and they think that there's a ton of fits, whether it's Tyleek Williams, Emeka Egbuka, who we talked about, Quinshon Judkins. They think the Steelers should be interested in a lot of the Ohio State guys this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's interested in the Ohio State guys. There's just a lot of really good players. That's how you win the national championship usually. But I think the Steelers do absolutely value teams that win, winners, players that have that experience. I think there's a lot to say for winning, and I don't think it's like a personal stat really. But I think when you're looking at drafting guys that have been on a championship team, I do think there's something there. And look, you could probably build a 7-round Steelers mock draft out of just Ohio State guys this year. And I don't think it would be very bad. There's a lot of good players over there.
If they were going to throw a dart and I don't know, based off the college football playoff that he just had, if they were going to throw a dart at a quarterback position on day 2, and Will Hollard intrigue you at all or no?
I would be a lot more intrigued with him in the 4th round than on day 2.
Yeah. So that's the reason I said that, was because I feel like 4th round was where we were talking about before. Really
on
good college football player one.
I don't know. Yeah, probably not. I think I'd rather just wait and get like Kyle McCord or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, not that he finished his career at Ohio State, but spent time at Ohio State. Ended up in Syracuse after.
Yeah, Buckeye one way or the other. Yeah.
But anyways, let's talk about some guys that you got to see this week. I think one of the interesting things that you said yesterday is you were kind of going through your notes. I don't remember who the player was that you're specifically talking about, but you said you always make note of guys that maybe start off on day 1 a little bit rough and get better as the days go on. Who fell into that bucket for you, like right off the bat?
I thought Jalen Milroe got better. I thought he was his best day was today. He still is not great at this, but I think he showed a lot of poise. He just has a great personality. I don't really know. Let me be clear. Jalen Milroe throwing the ball in these last 3 days was awful. I don't really know how much he hurt his draft stock, if at all, because he didn't have to be here in the first place. And I think his personality and his mentality about the game and the quarterback position, at that position, that stuff matters so much that how many guys can make all the throws and never figure the rest of it out? We see it over and over and over again. And I feel like he's the kind of player that you can sell yourself on. He'll get better and be able to figure it out. I just think a really probably the best interview I did all week. I talked to him twice, once before the first practice and once after the last practice today. I thought he was smart, funny, humble, everything you want your quarterback to be. I Like I was saying, I think like he's going to shoot up this week. That didn't happen, obviously. But I don't really think he hurt himself too much and I think that improvement goes a long way too. I mean, you are asking him to do something he doesn't do a lot of. A couple other guys that I thought got better.
I just want to say here too,
Yeah,
the one thing I want to add to that is I feel like that exact thought kind of goes hand in hand with, I feel like teams would rather just see him rip it as opposed to checking it down, even regardless of what the throw is going to look like. And also just in terms of developing a player, even if it's so clear that he's not there now, teams, they're going to feel like they're going to be the ones that can get the most out of him, right? Like they have that much confidence, obviously, in who they are as a team and their staff. That's why they're in those positions and built the way that they do, that they're going to be the team that can get him right. So I
agree. I think someone is still going to fall in love with him. I'm not sure it's going to happen in the first round now, but I still think someone will. Maybe the Browns, top of the second. And honestly, don't think that's a bad pick for them there at that point. Some guys that got better as the week went on. Bashal Tootin from Virginia Tech.
Yes.
He had, I don't know if it was so much as he got better, but they did pass blocking drills late in the week, and he was really good in those. And so that kind of opened my eyes.
That was the question I was waiting for him to answer, honestly, because I didn't see it.
Like that was a thing for me. Marcus Yarns from Delaware, I think he got better as the week went on. He was cooking dudes in some receiving drills today. Another running back. I thought the wide receivers in general got better as the week went on. Like day one, the quarterbacks were playing badly, but like nobody was bailing them out. Like the balls were just falling. I felt like over the course of the week, some guys stepped up and made some plays. Guys like Higgins, Tez Johnson, Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech showed up today. On the last day, I liked what I saw from him. Kyle Williams from Washington State is another one of those guys that kind of popped late in the week for me. Like Jalen Royals has been good. Jack Besh,
Jack Besh is the one I saw a lot of people talking about, just like catches everything. And it's interesting because he's the TCU counterpart to Savion Williams, who at one point was talked about as like, a guy that would go like as a day two guy. But it's his counterpart that's, kind of getting more
backed out. Man, I don't know. I don't know if I think that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other guys that I thought in the trenches, Wyatt Milam from West Virginia. First time he's played guard in his career, was a tackle in college, playing guard here. Had some struggles early. I thought he showed some toughness, and I thought he got better as the week went on. Yaya Black, a defensive tackle from Iowa. Darius Alexander and Josh Farmer and that group at defensive tackle. Darius Alexander from Toledo, Josh Farmer, Florida State. Dude, they just ate up today's practice. Like they were loud. They were talking trash. They were making plays. They were hyping each other up. And you could throw – Aeneas Peebles was good all the way through, though. But, like, those two guys really came on strong, I felt like, at the end. They ended the week really good. The other D-line group, TJ Sanders, to me, I don't know if it's so much that he got better as it just I think was not someone I was expecting to be as good as he was. I really took note of that as the week went on. And, I think
Trevor Sikkema was talking about him as a first-round pick.
I think that's a bit hasty, but like a second rounder, and I'm not sure I was saying that for sure before we got here.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Andy Weidel got to there today. What did you do? Did you keep an eye on his habits at all? Who he was looking at? Who he was?
Talking to those defensive tackles. Went over to Alexander after his practice. It was they were checking in on Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, who had an injury. Didn't see him towards the end there, but more. It was watching wide receivers early. More the same, man. Wide receiver and D tackle. Just feels like those are the first two picks somehow, some way.
So is that what you would say your takeaway? Because if so, you told us what your takeaway was going to end up being the first day that you were down there when they had an eye on the defensive tackles. Does that end up being your end of practice takeaway?
Yeah. I mean, I think wide receiver and D tackle are the priorities. And I think it's a really deep group of defensive tackles that go all the way through down into day 3. I think it's a pretty good spot for wide receiver at 21 and 52. It's probably not much deeper beyond that. And then I think the running backs are good all the way. This is the deepest running back class I can remember in recent memory anyway. To the point that, like, I don't know where they're going to go, but I'm sure they're going to get a good one.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, we expect that they're going to add a back. I keep just saying I think it's going to happen on day 2. But the bigger question to me is, like, if someone asked you right now if that guy was in Mobile or not, what do you think? Do you think that guy was there this week or no?
I mean, the Ohio State guys are definitely tempting, and they weren't here. Caleb Johnson wasn't here. Amarian Hampton. I mean, Devin Neal just screams like Arthur Smith running back. Tootin. I'll say, like, probably not here, but those two guys definitely could be the guy.
Okay. They've had the Steelers. Do you know off the top of your head? I saw somebody put out this, and I wish I would have bookmarked it so I could have the accurate information. But the Steelers have like a streak of drafting at least one guy that's been at the Senior Bowl, and maybe there's a lot of teams that fall into that same bucket with how many guys, how much talent there is at the Senior Bowl now. Who, like, if you had to give me a short list of names, whether it's 5 or so within that group, like, this guy seems like a Steeler. You just mentioned a couple running backs, but expanding this beyond the running back position that we should be keeping an eye on for the Steelers out of the group that was there.
Yeah. Higgins, Felton, and Besh at wide receiver. Ty Felton especially.
Okay.
I mean, not that, like, Higgins and Besh aren't fits for the Steelers, but I just think there's more like fits for everyone. And then running back, the two I just mentioned. Corner.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot about corner, really.
Azariah Thomas had a really good day today. I mean, he's so good.
That's a DB's guy, too.
I think he goes before the Steelers are going to take a corner in this draft. I think they'd have to take him with their first-round pick if they wanted to get him. Another, like, Steelers-y guy, Jacob Parrish, Kansas State. It's probably a slot. Really tough, though. Like, kind of gives me, like, taller Mike Hilton vibes. He laid somebody out in what is, like, generally, like, it's contact, but, like, they're usually like big hits. You know what I mean? Like, he's crushed someone. And I'm like, yes, Steeler. And then Walter Nolan, it is definitely a Steelers kind of player. TJ Sanders, I feel like could be, but Darius Alexander, man, Toledo, just the Toledo alone, like, that's a place they like going to. And I really see it. Josh Farmer too, man. The D tackles are so good, but that's for sure. There's a lot of Steelers guys here.
I don't think that they would be upset about the fact that Thomas in college at Florida State, defensive backs coach Patrick Surtain. So some bloodlines there coached him up as well, which I always appreciate.
Maybe they could. I mean, that'd be good. The thing about corner, and the reason I don't think that they're going to take him, is that there are just so many that I think are going to be available, whether it's through free agency or for a trade, that I don't think they're going to need to go that early there. I think they'll get that done.
Well, I just mentioned we haven't talked a ton about corner. You brought up Thomas there, like, maybe some other fits, but not necessarily as it pertains to the Steelers, but just giving us a bit of an idea about the talent that was there. Who impressed at that position this week?
I think Max Hairston from Kentucky is a dude. Quincy Riley from Louisville. They both played pretty well. Trey Amos from Ole Miss. All three of those guys I feel like are outside corners that could be a good, like, Dante Jackson replacement type. Parrish is more of a slot. Upton Stout is another, like, he's like,
what a name.
He's like Beanie Bishop all over again. He actually went to Western Kentucky, which is where Beanie started his college career. He's, like, very short, but pretty good. I thought Darren Porter from Iowa State and Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech both showed some stuff over the course of the week too. But like, I don't think this is the deepest group of corners in the world, but there's like guys you can find at pretty much every level. The one thing I'll say is like in terms of like after Thomas, this group did not have another like stud outside man cover corner. Like he's kind of the one guy that fits that role here.
This could be a difficult, maybe even impossible question to answer if you weren't. I mean, you're trying to pay attention to what the Steelers are paying attention to. That's what you're there for, so that makes sense. But we've talked about maybe some like outside the box potential picks that the Steelers could make. We've talked a bit about tight end. Is there a tight end there? Because people have talked about this tight end class too being one of the better ones in recent memory, and maybe even a little bit under the radar. From that perspective, don't know what the talent level is there compared, because like obviously Loveland's not there. Tyler Warren's not there, but yeah.
Harold Fannin from Bowling Green was one of my favorite players here. Just really versatile, really athletic, great hands. Not like known as much of a blocker, but they put him in some tough spots, and he tried really hard. That's like the first step anyway.
Yeah.
I thought he looked really good. Elijah Arroyo from Miami had some really he had like some high highs and some low lows, a couple of drops, but some really nice catches as well. Caught a touchdown today on a scramble drill. I think it was from Tyler Shuck, and he punted the ball out of the stadium, which I thought was hilarious. Just turned and kicked it right over the scoreboard, gone.
He's already given an ode to George Pickens.
I know,
yeah,
right?
We got to get this guy.
Feels like a Steeler. I thought two guys actually that I could have mentioned in the better as the week went on category: Jake Briningstool from Clemson and CJ Dippery from Alabama. Dippery's actually a PA guy, like near Scranton, I want to say. And I thought he struggled early, and Briningstool maybe I wouldn't say struggled, but I just didn't really notice him until today, where I thought and then Mason Taylor from LSU was really good all the way through. NFL bloodlines for days there. His dad is Jason Taylor, and his uncle is Zach Thomas. So, yeah, you got plenty of
pretty good.
It doesn't really get any better than that.
Welcome to Miami. Yeah.
Hey, Jason Taylor,
right.
Woodland Hills, Pittsburgh. So, never know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Whether it's something you already said, reiterating it, or something else, I just want you to, before we get out of here, just put a bow on the Steelers Senior Bowl week, if you could, for us.
I think the Steelers are in really good shape for the positions they need outside of quarterback in terms of getting what they want. And I think if the plan is largely wait on quarterback till 26, re-sign Justin Fields, and try to make this team as good as they can between now and the time they can draft a quarterback, I think they have really good players available to them to enact that plan. When I look at the options that I think are going to be available at 21 and the path the Steelers are taking, I feel very confident they're going to get a really good player there. I feel really confident they're going to be able to meet most of their needs. They have a ton of salary cap space. The free agency class lines up pretty well with their other needs too. I think you're going to see the Steelers make significant progress at 4 or 5 positions between now and the beginning of May. And I think that's probably what you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good stuff. All right. Great week this week with the coverage down in Mobile. Alan, you'll still be here on the pod tomorrow with DB, correct?
Yeah, me and DB tomorrow. And then I'll be headed to Orlando. So
my week on the afternoon drive has concluded. I will be taking an afternoon drive to Indianapolis this weekend for the Royal Rumble. So pumped for that. But my week is over. I'll see you guys next Monday. But Alan, until then, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now. The site's account SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the word so I can get paid. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform as we continue our it's not been a rapid drive, but our keep creeping forward on our goal of getting to 15,000 subscribers here on the YouTube platform. We are now just, man, this is a tough one.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Don't say it.
I don't want you to say the person I'm thinking of.
Oh, well then you say
subscribers away. Clark Higgins.
There you go.
Subscribers away.
I was going to go Brian Hinkle. Going back to
yours are so much more obscure. Mine are like like players that weren't great, but people really liked. And yours are just so obscure.
Well, I mean, we don't. I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, sure. Marquise Pouncey probably would have been.
Yeah. That was way too easy. And then, like, I was like, I don't want to say Kendrick Green. So,
okay. Yeah. I mean, no love for Eku Leota this year wearing 53.
Yeah, you just now told me that he was wearing number 53 this year. I wouldn't have been able to tell you what his number was. So there we go. But yes, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review over there and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. You will find us, and then you'll find me everywhere. Zachary Smith, PGH, Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.